Phinehas, God's Trumpet Call Presents, 8th reading from the book of Numbers, 41st reading from Torah. Outline of Torah portion. God's reward for Phinehas. Numbers chapter 25 verse 10 to chapter 26 verse 4. God's reward for Phinehas for his zeal. Verse 10 to 13. What God noticed in Phinehas is his zeal about the things of God. God said, "He was zealous with my zeal among them." He was passionate about the things God was passionate about. Phinehas came against Israel's unfaithfulness to their covenant with God. So God rewarded him. God blessed Phinehas. To him God gave his covenant of peace. He promised that he would be the descendant of Aaron through whom the Aaronic priesthood will pass. It should be a priest who should be ministering atonement for the people, and the zeal of Phinehas made atonement for the children of Israel. God commands Israel to attack the Midianites, verse 14 to 18. Names of the man and the woman who publicly sinned was Zimri and Cosbi. Zimri means my remembrance. Name Cosbi means my lie or deception. Both their fathers were leaders. God commanded Israel to attack Midianites for their involvement in seducing Israel to the sins of immorality and idolatry. The command to take the second census, verse 1 to 4. After the plague, the Lord spoke to Moshe and Eleazar and told them to take a census of all the congregation of the children of Israel from 20 years old and above, by their father's house, all who can go to war in Israel. The last census was taken about 39 years earlier. The command to take that census we find in the beginning of book of Numbers while Israel was camped at Mount Sinai. The Israelites, numbered at the first census, had the chance to enter Canaan. But because they listened to the bad report the 10 spies gave, God punished them by assigning them to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. At the time of the second census, not even one numbered in the original census remained except Caleb and Joshua. Rashi saw the census as a sign of God's affection for his people. He compared it to a shepherd whose flock was intruded by wolves who killed some of his sheep. He counted them to know how many were left. The wolves that attacked the flock included the incidents at Taberah, Korah's rebellion, the serpents in the wilderness, and the plague that resulted after Israel's sin with the Midianite woman and worship Baal of Peor. A census of the new generation. Numbers chapter 26 verse 5 to 51. Following are the results of the census for each tribe. As before, this census does not include the tribe of Levi. Inheritance of the land of Canaan. Numbers chapter 26 verse 52 to chapter 27 verse 5. Division of the land, verse 52 to 56. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, "To these the land shall be divided as an inheritance according to the number of names. Number 1, a larger tribe to receive a larger inheritance and a smaller tribe to receive a smaller inheritance. Number 2, land shall be divided by lot. Number 3, inheritance shall be according to the names of tribes of their fathers. Before the Israelites crossed the Jordan and entered Canaan, the land was to be divided among the tribes based on above guidelines and according to the population indicated by the census results. The tribal designation of a particular territory was to be determined by the casting of lots. According to the Talmud, the assignments were conducted as follows. Eleazar was wearing Urim and Thummim. Joshua and all Israel stood before him. Two large vessels stood before Eleazar. One contained lots with the names of the 12 tribes, and the other contained lots on which the portions of the land were written. Before he even drew the lots, the Holy Spirit inspired him. He would announce, Zebulun is coming up, and borders of the territory of Akko are coming up with it. Then he shook the vessel with the names of tribes, and the lot of Zebulun came up in his hand. He shook the vessel with the territories, and the lot of Akko came up in his hand. According to prophet Ezekiel, in the Messianic age, division of the land will happen in a similar way. Ezekiel chapter 47 to 48 describes the land being divided into portions, each tribe owning an adjacent strip of land, sharing east-west borders with their neighboring tribes. Within these divisions, land is to be divided by lot. According to Ezekiel's prophecy, there is room for Gentiles to have an inheritance in the land. In Ezekiel chapter 47, verse 22 to 23, it says, You shall allot it as an inheritance for yourselves and for the foreigners residing among you, and who have children. You are to consider them as native-born Israelites. Along with you, they are to be allotted an inheritance among the tribes of Israel. In whatever tribe a foreigner resides, there you are to give them their inheritance, declares the sovereign Lord. The Levites, verse 52. They were not numbered among the other children of Israel in both census because they were not to go to war. Their inheritance was greater, for the Lord said in Numbers 18:20, I am your portion and your inheritance among the children of Israel. The generation of unbelief, verse 63 to 65. None of those counted in the first census were counted in the second, and no inheritance in the promised land except Caleb and Joshua. Zelophehad's daughters, verse 5. Zelophehad was a man from tribe of Manasseh. He died in the wilderness. He had 5 daughters, but no sons. The daughters approached Moshe and asked to inherit their father's portion in the land of Israel. Daughters of Zelophehad, Numbers chapter 27, verse 6 to verse 23. Settlement for daughters of Zelophehad, verse 6 to 11. Zelophehad was from the tribe of Manasseh. By the time of the second census, Zelophehad was dead. He had no sons. He had only 5 daughters, Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. And the family was not going to receive any portion of the tribal allotment of Manasseh. And Zelophehad's name will not be in the tribal allotment, and the daughters were going to be landless. So the daughters decided to bring the matter before Moshe, Eleazar, and the elders, and all the congregation. They said that their father died in the wilderness, but he was not in the company with Korah and those who rebelled against God. So they asked, why should the name of our father be removed from among his family because he had no son? A traditional commentary on the Torah suggests that the daughters of Zelophehad knew that God's compassion is not as man's compassion. Man considers the requests of other men, but he who called forth the world, and it was, shows his mercy alike. As it is said in Psalms 136, verse 25, who gives good to all flesh, regardless of gender. And in Psalms 147, verse 9, he gives to the beast its food. The Midrash is speaking an essential truth. God has no gender preferences. His attention will be the same for both his sons and daughters. Moshe did not know how to decide the case, so he took the matter to God. And God said that the daughters of Zelophehad should receive their father's portion. The order of inheritance after a man dies is first to inherit are the sons. If no sons, then the daughters. If no sons, no daughters, then the brothers of the deceased. If no brothers, then the brothers of his father. If no brothers of his father, then whoever is the next closest relative. From this story, we can learn that sometimes a woman may have to take up the responsibility of a man. Bible recognizes the male headship over the household. But if the woman is divorced or widowed, the responsibility falls on her. Also, if the spouse of a woman not interested in matters of faith, then the woman may be called upon to step forward to hold the responsibility. God tells Moshe of his coming death. Verse 12 to 14. First time Moshe was told that he would die before coming to the promised land was in Numbers chapter 20. This time the Lord told Moshe to go up into the Mount Abarim. He will be able to see the promised land but not enter it. Moshe asked the Lord to appoint someone over the congregation that they may not be like sheep without a shepherd. God designates Joshua to become the new leader. Daily, Sabbath, and monthly offerings. Numbers chapter 28, verse 1 to verse 15. Offerings and appointed times, verse 1 to 2. The Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, command the children of Israelites and say to them, my offerings, my food, and my offerings made by fire, as a sweet aroma to me, you shall be careful to offer to me at their appointed times. The sacrifices God told Israel to make belonged to him. He called them my offerings. They were to be made according to his command and not improvised. In Leviticus chapter 23, we are introduced to the Lord's Moedim, Sabbath, Passover, Pentecost, the festival of trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the festival of booths. God gave them as his appointed times for meeting with man. They are holy days and celebrated even to this day. Some appointed days are celebrated with specific days off, festival meals, specific Bible readings, and synagogue services. During the days of the tabernacle and temple, appointed times were celebrated with special additional sacrifices, because they were brought in addition to the 2 lambs that were offered as a continual burnt offering. In Parsha Shalach, we learn that each burnt offering must be brought with a meal offering and a wine libation. The meal and wine offering are also mentioned here in Parsha Phinehas. Here is a summary of the meal and wine offerings brought with each type of animal offerings. Sheep, meal offering, 1/10 of ephah, wine 1/4 of hin. Ram, meal offering, 2/10 of ephah, wine 1/3 of hin. Young bull, meal offering, 3/10 of ephah, wine, half a hin. Daily burnt offerings. A daily burnt offering is to be brought in the morning and afternoon. This offering is a male lamb of the first year. Each one is accompanied by a meal offering and a wine libation. This offering is brought every day, even if other offerings are also brought on that day. The other offerings that are to be brought on special days are collectively known as Musaf, additional offerings. Shabbat. The Musaf offering on Shabbat is 2 male lambs of the first year. They are accompanied with a meal offering and a wine libation for each lamb. New moon. The additional offerings on Rosh Hashanah are 2 young bulls, 1 ram, 7 male lambs. Also included with them are their meal offerings and wine libations. Also brought on Rosh Hashanah is a male goat for a sin offering. Offerings at Passover, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Numbers chapter 28 verse 16 to chapter 29 verse 11. Passover, Pesach. The festival of Pesach, Passover, begins on the 15th of Nisan and is 7 days long. Every day these Musaf burnt offerings are brought. 2 young bulls, 1 ram, 7 male lambs. Also every day a male goat is brought as a sin offering. Shavuot, Festival of Weeks. Shavuot is celebrated on the 50th day after the first day of Passover. It is a one-day festival. Here are the Musaf burnt offerings for Shavuot: 2 young bulls, 1 ram, 7 male lambs. Also a male goat is brought as a sin offering. Rosh Hashanah, New Year, the first day of the 7th month. The month of Tishrei is Rosh Hashanah, as stated in the Torah. It is a one-day celebration. However, at present it is celebrated for 2 days in Israel and in diaspora. Here are the Musaf burnt offerings for Rosh Hashanah: 1 young bull, 1 ram, 7 male lambs. Also a male goat is brought as a sin offering, because Rosh Hashanah is also Rosh Hashanah. The Musaf offerings for Rosh Hashanah mentioned above are also brought. Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. The 10th of Tishrei is celebrated as Yom Kippur. The celebration is for 1 day. Here are the Musaf burnt offerings for Yom Kippur: 1 young bull, 1 ram, 7 male lambs. Also a male goat is brought as a sin offering. A unique offering on Yom Kippur is the 2 goats. The high priest designates one of them as a sin offering and the other is sent as Azazel. More details are found on Parsha Aharemot. Offerings at Sukkot, Shemini Atzeret. Numbers chapter 29 verse 12 to chapter 30 verse 1. Sukkot, Festival of Booths. The festival of Sukkot begins on the 15th of Tishrei and lasts for 7 days. Musaf burnt offerings for the first day of Sukkot are 13 young bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs. Also a male goat is brought as a sin offering. The same set of Musaf offerings are brought each day of Sukkot, with one important difference. The number of young bulls is decreased by 1 each day. Therefore, here are the Musaf offerings for the 7th, last day of Sukkot: 7 young bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs. Also a male goat is brought as a sin offering. Shemini Atzeret, 8th day of assembly. What would be the 8th day of Sukkot is actually a separate festival called Shemini Atzeret. Part of the evidence of Shemini Atzeret being a new festival is found by looking at the Musaf burnt offerings for that day. 1 young bull, 1 ram, 7 male lambs. Also a male goat is brought as a sin offering. As you can see, these offerings no longer follow the pattern of Sukkot, but are much more like the other festivals.